Hello everyone. Welcome to the 33rd virtual panel organized by PAVE Europe. My name is Guido Di Pasquale. I'm the managing director of PAVE Europe. And today we are discussing something that is not in the usual discussions in the autonomous vehicles ecosystem. We always talk about robotaxi and passenger transport and how this will impact our cities and our regions. But we often forget to talk about a use case and application that is already happening in Europe and outside Europe, and that can really bring benefit to the players, to the industry, and to those all actors involved in this ecosystem. I'm talking about deploying autonomous vehicles, autonomy in closed environment like ports and airports and other terminals. And today we are focusing on ports. And because this technology is a complicated technology, but when it comes to a confined area, maybe we can have easier, I wouldn't say, easy deployment, but easier compared to an urban context. And also from the regulatory point of view, it can be easier. And this is really relevant for many stakeholders in Europe that are trying to find the right business models for the deployment of autonomous mobility. I'm very happy to have with us two key players in this ecosystem that are working hard to make autonomy in ports and for logistics a reality. I have Nicholas Thomas, Head of Business Development at Embotech. Welcome, Nicholas.
Thanks a lot, Guido.
And Jonathan van Kouwenbergen, Port of the Future Advisor at the Port of Antwerp and Bruges in Belgium. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So it's actually, I think this is a very timely discussion. We are coming back from an event that we organized in Zurich together with SAM, the Swiss Association of Autonomous Mobility. We talked a lot about passenger transport, robotaxi. Some well-known ride-hailing companies are expected to deploy hundreds, if not thousands, of vehicles in Europe. But this is already happening in environments like ports. Before we start the discussion, I would like to give you the opportunity just to say a few words about yourself and what you do, so that the audience is aware of the profiles of our speakers. Nicholas, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks for having me. My name is Nicholas. At Embotech, I'm the head of business development. I have been with the company for almost 5 years now. And previously, I worked for Daimler Trucks already for autonomous driving in gated areas. So for quite a while, the focus has been on deploying autonomous solution in gated areas. And that's what we're now also doing at Embotech.
Thank you, Nicholas. And Jonathan.
Yes. Hi, I'm Jonathan. I'm indeed working for the innovation enablement team of the Port of Antwerp-Bruges, where I've been working on mobility policy for quite some time, on e-trucking, implementation of e-charging hubs, and for trucks in the past. Of course, the port is about cargo and throughput of freight, so less on passenger transportation, but we still try to combine all these different kind of technologies. And then when it comes to autonomy, we believe that our port as an innovation platform is the ideal test bed or sandbox to kick off with all different kind of solutions.
Thank you, Jonathan. I would like to stay with you to set the scene a bit. So when we say automation in the port ecosystem, where is it already real today? Of course, yeah, you can mention the Port of Antwerp and Bruges, and where is still more promise than practice?
Yes. Um, I think when you ask me where is it real is definitely on installations and equipment. For example, the box-based solution at DP World, which is also being implemented currently at PSA Europe terminal, is a very cool stacking solution. It's compared to logistics in warehouses, but then on a container level in real life. So that's a very a very impressive technology. But then also on remote and autonomous barging. We see a lot of activities. We have also beyond visual line of sight drone operations. And then if you ask me where is it more a promise than a reality is then driving. We had last year, we had some cases with fully autonomous terminal activities, solutions such as Niklas is also providing. We had on terminals like DP World and Met Repair. But we are still in pilot phases there. And if we look at robo trucks, we're actively engaging to get those things on the road, but we're still not there yet. So definitely discussing scaling and real activities with added value. This is still more the promise. So we hope to see that shift that soon. But yeah, that's not a reality yet.
Yeah, thank you. And just a follow up, which operations do you think are easier to automate first?
We always intend to think that on private premises is the easiest way to handle. I should say that quite recently that idea shifted a bit in my head since I had different conversations with terminals and so on. We realized that that it sometimes could be more complex on a private premises than even on public roads where um, we see we see that we get some traction. You see the same with these barges and these drones. They operate since 2019 on public waterways and public airspace, and they seem to handle quite well. But if we look at those drone operations in a chemical plant, yeah, they don't really like to see that coming or flying over their installations. So they are even more procure or more they try to keep it more safe, and that's a bit a similar approach that we see with implementation of autonomous terminal tractors and those kind of technologies where we see the terminals holding back a bit. I think that we need implementations in public space to really convince them to get along and to have the added value there. But I can, in the same speed, say, okay, these autonomous mixed traffic terminal tractors that we already tested were, of course, on private premises. So it's a bit on a double speed, but you feel resistance from as well regulatory perspective as from companies. So it's we have to work on both levels.
Thank you, Jonathan. And Niklas, from the technology provider point of view, I know Embotech is a front runner on deploying this technology. And what makes ports and controlled environment, gated environment, the best first scaling market for autonomy, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think to be honest, it's a couple of different reasons. One that I think is quite important is experience with automation. So you see that ports were quite early to start adopting, for example, remotely controlled cranes or automated stacking cranes, AGVs on the water side. So there's a lot of experience in what it means to introduce automated systems. And that certainly helps to bridge that gap and to understand that it also requires change of processes, how to test and integrate such a new technology. So that is definitely one topic where ports have a lot of experience and knowledge. That also helps us as a technology provider to deploy these kind of solutions. And another important topic is quite structured traffic flows and processes. So this makes it easier for autonomous systems to perform well. So the less unstructured traffic flows are, the more complex it becomes for the autonomous system to handle. But also for the other traffic to handle autonomous systems, because they also need to understand what an autonomous system is planning to do in order to anticipate its behavior. Because some movements might not be like humans operate a machine.
Yeah. So at the end, what is really different between public road autonomy and what would you
Mm.
do in these areas? Is it ODD definition? Is it the safety case, operations, or commercial models?
Yeah, I would say it's mainly a safety case and the ODD. So if we look at a gated area, a private ground, you have a certain control over what is happening on that area, who is allowed to go where, to drive where. You can control flow of people or where people are allowed. So you need to do always a hazard and risk analysis for every site that you deploy. And if you just imagine the number of risks that you need to consider in a controlled environment, they are significantly lower than in public space, because a lot more things can happen that are outside of your control. So you need to consider a lot more risks. You need a lot more safety mitigations for that. So it just makes the safety case a lot harder, because you don't have a lot of operational mitigation possibilities, whereas you have that in a controlled environment, because you can enforce certain processes and rules. And this is way more difficult in a public road. On top of that, it is the topic of predictability. You, for example, in a controlled environment, you can easily say that in certain weather conditions, similar to crane operation, if it is too windy or too much rain, you stop operations because it becomes unsafe. This is more difficult if you are operating on public roads, where to park the vehicle, where to stop operations. So operations in that sense also becomes more complex, because your vehicles could be anywhere.
Yeah, thanks, Nicholas. Jonathan, also on what Nicholas just said. So you are, let's say, the end customer for the deployment of this technology. And my question is, what is the problem that you would like to solve first with the introduction of autonomy in your port, in Antwerp and Bruges, or in general? As Nicholas mentioned, is it predictability, or it is safety, emission, labor shortages, maybe, or costs in general?
Maybe I'll also clarify something, because I saw in the Q&A also someone mentioning Felixstowe and the Hutchinson ports. Um, we as Port of Antwerp-Bruges are not the end customer, so that's an important nuance. You see this in a lot of bigger ports. If you look at bigger ports, they are acting as an authority and not as a terminal operator. So in our port, for example, we have a lot of different terminal operators looking at C Invest, MSC, PSA, corporations, DPW, operating those terminals. So in the end, the terminal is the end consumer or the user of the technology. If you look at the solution that Embotech is providing or Nicholas is providing, so indeed in Felixstowe, Hutchinson is the operator, and they don't really act as they are not the regulator, or they don't have a role such as ours. That's just because of the scale, and you see this kind of model shifting in the whole of the world. So we have to make a nuance in that, since we don't really have that commercial role. But of course, we are enabler, we are facilitator. We try to help our customers, being those terminal operators and those logistic hubs, and of course our chemical hub in Antwerp and in Bruges, to implement these technologies, because indeed one of those for us, we hear is the major hurdle, the solutions that we want to tackle is people. It's the fact that we don't find the people right now to operate. It's a major challenge. You hear it everywhere, every logistic player, that they just don't find the people. We have to speed up with the implementation of this technology to learn, because we all know that the safety driver will be in there in the beginning. We will have to learn a bit. We have to adapt. So that's the main reason why people want to work on this. Of course, safety is then an enabling factor. It's of course very important for us as well that safety is ensured, and that we can, optimize our safety measures, and optimize our safety in with this transition. But I see it more as an enabler. It's a way to convince also the regulator and ourselves, and it's a good motivation. You have the people at first. This is the commercial amplifier, and then in the second phase, you have indeed the safety, which is like the reason why in the second phase you really need to do this, because it will make the whole operation more safe, and thus the commercial rollout will also make more sense. If it's safer, it's from a risk point of view, also on a commercial point of view, way more interesting. So
No, thank you, Jonathan, and also thank you for clarifying the role of the port. A more technical question, Niklas. In this controlled environment, what is the real technical blocker or barrier or challenge for you to move from a pilot to a scaled service? What can also be helpful for other contexts and to transfer this technology to other ports.
Yeah, I really wouldn't call it a blocker more than a challenge, as you also phrased it. But in the end, we also see it happening right now with APM terminals in Maasvlakte, right? So we are currently rolling out 30 vehicles there. We previously have done a 3-month pilot with them. It showed that the technical feasibility is there, that it works. So then in the end, you need to find the confidence and the trust in the technology to then progress with rolling it out. And I think the biggest hurdle there is then the effort that it takes on system integration and changing the processes that are made for human operations. So if you live with the assumption that you just substitute the status quo process as is and substitute that with autonomous vehicles, then this most likely won't fly, because in the end you have a lot of things are done by the human in the loop of this operational process, and you need to find different ways to interact with all the other container handling equipment, for example, doing the handshakes, etc. So that takes a little bit, I would say, a leap of faith to start that process in order to then go to a rollout. So pilot is always good and fine. You can prove a lot. You can show certain KPIs that the technology is working. But the main challenge is then to jointly sit together and discuss, okay, what needs to be done to properly integrate it in an operational environment.
Yeah. Thank you, Niklas. Jonathan, you mentioned that the labor shortage is one of the main goals, to address with this technology. And if I think about remote operations, for example, but this is one of the tasks. In general, where do you see humans staying in the loop. So are you planning to remove all the stuff, all the people, or still people are needed, humans are needed to live together with the new technology?
Yeah. It's a technical question, of course. In the end, I think the answer will come mostly out of the technology providers, whether they feel confident. And I think there is a difference again between pure terminal operations, where you see in China, for example, shifting from one supervisor on one vehicle or one operational stacking crane to going to one on 10, one on 30, and it grows. So I don't dare to say if it will ever become zero. I assume that there will always be a certain human in the loop procedure. But that's looking at the terminal operations. So that's on private premises again. So also the example from Felixstowe, the example of APM terminals in Rotterdam, which is Embotech is working on. Those are these private premises in very closed environment, where you could end up with what happens in China right now. You see these terminals operating, no one accessing that terminal area. You get a big factory of stacking containers. So that makes a lot of sense that you don't want too many people involved and you only have the supervisor sitting from behind the desk. We've seen it live last summer. With the help of the people of the Mobility Masterclass, the IT, they helped us to also visit that. And we saw these operations, and they yeah, you see that the amount of supervisors per vehicle is going down because you have this closed environment. But if we look at the port as an ecosystem as a whole, where you also have these public roads in between, and you have the connectivity between different terminals accessing public roads, I think that we're in another story. There I will probably have more one-on-one in first phases than going maybe to one-on-two, one-on-three. But I will go at a slower pace. So don't dare to say where we will end up. I think nobody has the glass ball, but looking at 10, 15 years ahead, I believe that we will be in this hybrid world, where you have still the manual vehicles being driven next to these autonomous vehicles on public roads, so that there you will always have this human in the loop procedure. On a terminal point of view, I believe that can go to a physical internet approach way faster. So it depends on the use case.
Okay, thank you.
May
Nicholas,
I add
feel free.
something to
Exactly.
that, Guido?
Exactly. Feel free.
I think especially on the public road, I think it also depends a lot by what regulatory authorities are demanding in terms of human in the loop. So that's of course also a different story compared to private grounds.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely. And also, yeah, what they are public authority they are demanding, but also from your point of view, from the technology provider point of view, what do you need from the port to make autonomy, perform reliably? Is it digital infrastructure, some operational discipline, connectivity, what data access? So what are your
Um,
requirements?
Yeah, I think one of the big topics definitely is operational discipline. Because in the end, we don't need data access per se. The vehicles will have they are all independently running because they have all the sensors and compute on the vehicle. So from the outer world, they just receive their commands, the mission, and then they exchange information about the status quo. Of course, we first need to scan the entire terminal once to create a map out of that, which is sort of the ground truth for the vehicle, which is also different to the public road applications where you need to do this in real time. So this is an advantage in the controlled environment. Having this map as a ground truth with all the different fixed structures in the map that also serve as orientation points for localization. So that is something that is required, but that we as a technology supplier will do for the port. And then in the end, it's mostly about understanding the transportation processes and the requirements for the technology. So once we know, because we are in the end we are not the port operations experts, right? We are the experts in autonomy. So this is really about sitting together and then jointly defining what does the technology need to be able to do and how to communicate with the other systems in order to fulfill the operational requirements that a port has. Because we are not going to change all of that. Yeah, doing this, and then the operational discipline that you mentioned is also quite important, because if you change major processes or, for example, where humans are allowed to walk or cross roads, etc., then this, of course, has an impact on the safety case. So you want to make sure that all the assumptions that you jointly defined in the safety case, where to expect people, where not. So, for example, I have an example from our other application, which is automated vehicle marshalling in automotive factories. We learned at some point that suddenly at one space there was a vending machine next to where we drove. So all of the people went there, of course. So this changes the safety assumptions that you originally do. So these sort of things you need to maintain and communicate clearly, and make sure that this holds true. Because otherwise, yeah, you're basically changing the ODD for which the system was designed.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Jonathan, feel free to react to this.
Yeah.
From your perspective.
And I think Niklas has the most experience. If you're the tech guy, but still you have been working on implementation on terminals, so you know more about it than I do. I think this is indeed also something that you can copy or find a systematic approach in the future. While indeed, if my approach is probably more often towards public spaces and how to interact or connect this like mitigated or organized area to another organized area, and this space in between, which we call public space, where we could say that you also have two layers. You have layers of closed environments such as highways and port environments in a bigger whole, which you don't have children walking around, and you probably don't have a dog or a cat just jumping by, while on a city or a village or the smaller routes, you have a whole other story. So I think we also have different methodologies to put in place there. I think I had a meeting this morning with the insurance company, where we also discussed this kind of layered approach towards liability, because in your case, Niklas, you don't really need the regulator. You don't have to really work with them. You have to work with the insurance company and to create a case which makes sense and fits, and where the risk is taken away as much as possible. While in the public space, you will have to work with the regulatory perspective and connect the one to the other. Definitely when you want to connect them to another port, such as we are looking forward to, or what we will try to do, then you're with that cross-border element, how to align between those people and authorities. That's another type of challenge. I would say it's less on operational excellence, but more on the regulatory aspect, while you guys are more on that operational excellence element.
Yeah, now very good link, Jonathan, to my next question, which is more related to replicability. So if we want to replicate successfully autonomous deployment from one port to another, what are the barriers? Is it easy? Is it complicated? Is it one solution fitting only one port, and then you have to start completely from scratch with another? It's for both of you, the question, of course. Is procurement the same? Do we need standards, stakeholders alignment? How do you see it?
I'm happy to oh,
Go
Jonathan,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So from our point of view, it depends, is probably the right answer. So of course, in different port operations might have different requirements depending on the use case that you are serving. There are a lot of different use cases and transportation processes that an autonomous system can cover in a port. And of course, as the product maturity is growing, one product can serve more different use cases without major modifications to the product itself. Besides of that, the stakeholder alignment is definitely always a big topic, because this technology or this product and deploying it in ports involves a lot of different stakeholders, from HSSE to operations to asset maintenance. So a lot of alignment with different stakeholders within the port operator needs to happen. And yeah, lastly, standardization. There's not a lot of standardization yet, especially when it comes to communication interfaces to, for example, a terminal operating system or equipment control system. So, and same towards the vehicle base. So we are quite well integrated with Turboc. But of course, some customers might want to use a different vehicle base. So the way that an autonomy supplier communicates with the vehicle and to the customer interface, that we are actually trying to push the standardization ourselves, because it is not there from regulatory bodies or industry. And we're also part of TIC 4, for example, in order to advance this, because it makes it also easier for the port operators to then deploy and integrate such systems.
Thank you, Nicholas and Jonathan.
Yeah, I think I'm happy that Nicholas went first, because then we have the technical alignment, and indeed I can imagine that on those terminal operations, indeed the alignment between terminal operating systems, and then how can you make that standardized? We've been trying that for ages, and we're not there yet, even with access to terminals and so on for normal truckers. Just we've been working on it massively. We have now one system. It has taken a lot of years before we were able just to shift from a PIN to now a biometry access to terminals, which is standardized. So that's something we have. That's a step. But I'm going to tackle maybe the regulatory aspect again, maybe shifting from the terminal. Let's assume that Nicholas achieves a kind of standardization process in the terminal operations in any way. Looking at scalability for or replicate to be able to replicate operations. If you look to public roads, I think the major hurdle is there the cross-border element. If we talk about autonomous vehicles in Europe, you often shift towards shuttles and buses and public transportation, either a robotaxi implementation, and this is mostly a local effort. So a single country can do efforts for that, or a single city even. But if looking at freight, you need to handle this really on a global or on an international scale. So there, cross border is embedded. It's a main reason to do so. So I think scalability and replicability is mostly linked to alignment on European level of what is to be accepted as a technology, what is to be what should be okay. I just want to give an example on what we've seen with autonomous barges. We've been having them in Antwerp since 2018, 2019, the first one. And we're still not there to have, and there you have to know we have about 60 barges that are now implemented with teleoperated and autonomous technologies, which are allowed in the Antwerp region and in Flanders, even in the whole of Belgium by now on the waterways, but they still cannot, with that technology, access Germany, either the Netherlands. These discussions are ongoing right now, but we're almost 7 years further. So it's you see, it takes a lot of time, and I don't think we have the luxury to wait also 7 years with autonomous trucking on that behalf. So I think the main thing that we are saying is the blocker there is the alignment in regulatory perspective, at least at the Benelux level, but most in a better way. Just let's say how China handles it, or this is also a bit of comparison towards the other country, the other continents. China and the States, there it's easy. They just say you have to know that, like in China, they say, okay, you have an organization for a city which handles everything on robotaxi, robo shuttle, sweepers, whatever you like. They take the city approach, but if you look at freight, you have the whole procedure is taken up to a national level to have like on the like we have the 10T network. They just say, okay, we have like this approach for these highways, mine sites, and ports to connect them. I think we if we want to scale or to define a barrier, I think we should be able, for first time maybe, to have like a European framework on how can we copy this methodology for the 10T network and really say, okay, one technology is validated on that network. It's a European network. It's even funded and with European money. Let's just have directly a European approach on the 10T network for robo trucks. So I think that's the main barrier. If we will not be able to do that, then we will be blocking ourselves in the coming decade. So I think that if we could be able to look at it in a more pragmatic way. And maybe, sorry, just want to link another thing. Pragmatic, that's the word I wanted to tell. That's the barrier in the end. We are not able to be pragmatic in Europe. We are not able to say we don't know all the risks. We cannot tackle all the risks. And in other continents, they're willing to say, okay, let's accept that there are risks. We accept today that a driver can have an accident, fall asleep, whatever. It's an acceptance of a society that it can happen. We should be able to be pragmatic and say, accept that there are certain risks, but that this is improving the society. So,
Thank you,
two
Jonathan.
barriers there.
Maybe it's we should move forward with the idea of a European road agency like we have for rail and
Let's keep it
Yeah.
pragmatic as well, because once you mentioned such an entity, we as Europeans lean are we have the risk of falling into
anyone.
a bunch of paperwork. So it should be a
Yes.
two-pager, at maximum a two-pager.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, when we look at the controlled environments, we already have that European framework, which basically is the machine directive. So it is very, very well classified that this is a machine, which way or what are the requirements to certify a machine. So we went through that whole process together with the TÜV last year and have the declaration of conformity to the machinery directive. And then you're able to CE mark the product. And that basically allows you to use that machine in operations. So yeah, for at least the gated areas, the framework is there in order to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, on driving times for drivers, there is a similar agreement, but an implementation in whole of Europe. But we should be able to do it in a pragmatic way, accept the risk, and just say, let's in this environment, this predefined environment, let's accept connecting ports, mine sites, and the whole 10T network. Let's just accept that we start with these one entity that validates technologies that can work on that whole network. That will be a major step. If we could say this time next year that this is accepted, I think we can have a chance of being active in this market and not just following. So
Clear message from you, Jonathan. Accept the risks and move ahead with that. We have a question from the audience that links quite well to my next and probably last question to both of you, and it is about business models and commercial scaling. So the question from the audience says, the deployment of these vehicles sounds really expensive once you factor in all the safety use cases, all the change management work required, etc. Is it really cost effective against maintaining the status quo? What are the real benefits?
I should leave it to Nicholas in first hand, I would say. He's the one drafting the bill.
So, I mean, yeah, in the end, this judgment, to be honest, needs to be done by the port operator who's operating the system. But it's the comparison that usually happens is you have a base machine, and you then can either operate that manually with all the constraints that it comes with. Also the issue to find even the labor. So it might in the end not always be just a commercial question of is it cheaper or more expensive, because if you can't find the labor, well, then you can't do moves and you can't create productivity. So you either have this option, or you compare that with what does it take in terms of machine modification to enable the machine to be driven autonomously, and the other integration. And then you must have a look at the cost of let's say a virtual driver or a manual driver. Compare this, and then each port operator must judge that for themselves, to be honest. It also depends on utilization of the fleet, of the labor costs. How many shifts do you operate? So there are a lot of different factors. Automation is also often combined with electrification, because you generate a lot of benefits there. For example, we do automated charging in Rotterdam with APM terminals. So you can do things like opportunity charging, all of that controlled by the backend. So yeah, the goal is to create also more transparency, resilience. A very important topic is safety compliance. This is what we always have with automation, that you can guarantee compliance with the safety rules, because it's also the goal in the end to remove humans from dangerous areas. And wherever you have interaction with heavy equipment, it automatically is dangerous. So yeah, that's I think my statement to this question.
No. Jonathan?
Of course, Nicholas has a better view, but I think it's indeed what he's saying. What I've heard also, as I told, I've been working on e-trucking as well in before, and I remember going to these different logistic owners and talking about you should transition towards electrified trucking, and then talking about TCO, and you always get this big discussion: what is it worth, and is the customer willing to pay for it? I can tell, I cannot give insights on numbers, but at least I can tell that when I talk to logistic owners today and discuss with them the possible implementation of autonomous technologies, that the interest is from a way other perspective. It's not only the costs that takes it over, but it's also maybe I can call it luxury, but maybe it's also just on the comfort of growing towards systems that can indeed be redundant, that can work on every moment, and that you feel that you shift towards an organization which is not purely operational focused, as in you need one-on-one a person to operate a vehicle, but you could scale your business with different vehicles and you have some supervisors. That creates a lot more comfort and indeed resilience. It's also about that. In current times, it's an important word. And when I look at C4, one of those companies operating autonomous ships or teleoperated ships in Antwerp, you see that they're the people that work at that company, where before they were like people on the road and away from family, and it was difficult to find people for those jobs, and that whole complexity in that environment shifted to, okay, we have people 9 to 5 in the office working, able to pick their kids up from school, and they have a normal, they have a standardized life. The work-life balance is really great, and they're happy with their job, and they're supervising 3 ships. And it works, and you know the comfort is growing in that company, and I think it's an important element to make a decision as well, not only purely on that budget one-on-one.
Yeah,
But
that's very
just
important.
adding on that one last sentence. Nevertheless, nobody would go for this if it wouldn't make sense economically. So that's still at the end one of the most
Correct.
deciding factors, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
But
Thanks
yeah,
very much. I would continue this conversation forever, and I think you have a lot to say. Unfortunately, we are almost at the end. My last question, possibly a very short answer. By this time next year, the most meaningful proof of progress in our sector in AVs will be ... How do you complete this sentence?
go
me,
first,
it's quite
Nicholas.
easy.
It's Nicholas, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Jonathan. Okay. So for us, it certainly will be 30 electric autonomous vehicles in operation at Maasvlakte 2 in Rotterdam.
Thank
We'd be
you.
glad to see that, Nicholas. For us, it's to have these first robo trucks on the road, either it be inside the ports or connecting the ports with other hubs
Good. Thanks a lot.
in commercial
Appreciate.
operations.
That's
Very
the
good.
important part.
Yeah.
So thank you, really thank you both, Jonathan and Nicholas, for joining this conversation today. Thank you to the audience, to the participants who followed the conversation. I hope you learned something, that you enjoyed these talks. And, at PAVE Europe, we are enabling these discussions and helping people understanding. With people, I mean general public, I mean everyone that needs to understand what is happening around autonomous vehicles in these days and in the future. Thank you both again for joining us, and hope to see you soon. Bye.
It was a pleasure to
Thanks.
be here. Thanks.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.